already said, let us go back a little and know why this commercialization has happened and how it was after freedom till 1976. Till 1976, education was a state subject. It means to say, every state government had complete right on education. 1976, when Congress was in the power and also the then Prime Minister was Indira Gandhi, 42nd Amendment was brought into our constitution. That made education to come under concurrent list. It means to say, education, the right on education is for both center and state. So after that, in 1986, when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister, the then Congress government was in power, they brought new policy on education, and they brought it in a very undemocratic way. As I already said, any policy making needs wide discussion. Suggestions must be taken from intellectuals, educationists, teachers, lecturers, parents, stakeholders, students' organizations. Nothing was done. And even then, in 1986 also, we had opposed it. We had told it will open floodgates of commercialization of education, and we are witnessing it today. So what I wanted to tell you is, till 1986, the government statistics say that more than 70% of institutions were government institutions. After implementation of that policy, new policy on education, more than 70% became private institutions. I mean to say, private schools and colleges came up, and entire higher education was commercialized. When such is the situation, what BJP government must have done, which has come to power before implementing NEP 2020? If at all they have little concern, they should have tried to find solution to stop commercialization of education. They must have strengthened government institutions by funding, by appointing adequate teachers, lecturers in the schools, providing basic facilities, ensuring every child will come to the school and colleges, and also enacting laws, strict laws on private institutions which are collecting exorbitant fees. Nothing was done, rather quite opposite was done. This NEP 2020 is hastening the process of commercialization and privatization of education. I would like to bring a point, that is about the funding for education and commercialization, what NEP 2020 says. I would like to read just this about funding for education, what NEP 2020 says. In order to attain the goal of education with excellence, the center and the states will work together to increase the public investment in the education sector to reach 6% of GDP at the earliest. Please note, they say the public investment, to increase the public investment, the education sector to reach 6% of GDP at the earliest. This 6% of GDP is a very populist demand since 1968. Kothari Commission has told in 1968 that 6% of GDP must be ensured in the allotted for education. What should happen now? If 6% of GDP has to be implemented, then central government, state government, and private institutions should invest. Under the garb of this 6% GDP, what the government is actually doing is, it is shirking off its responsibility from allotting budget. Gradually, it is reducing the budgetary allocation every year and shifting the responsibility of funding on public, that is the common man, and private institutions. What will happen if this happens? Majority of our country, that is 60%, more than 60% of our country live in villages, and they will be kept completely out of the ambit of education, which is a sheer injustice, and we have to oppose this. Instead of finding the solution, the governments are rather serving the interest of big corporate houses who are making this education as a business to make profit. Similarly, another point I said about commercialization of education, what NEP says is, I will not read it, but I'll tell you the essence. They say institutions can make profit, but they must not cross a limit, and they have to declare how much profit they did. What is this? They're ultimately saying and legalizing the looting of parents and students and making profit. This we don't agree and we oppose this. This is nothing but betraying the people of the country. In the name of speaking big words, in the name of saying education will be for all, they are completely betraying the common man, and millions of poor and lower middle class children will be out of education.